Hello and welcome back to Build a Car Workshop. Today I'm going to be talking about my series of unfortunate events with Merced Midas. So at the time of me making the last video on the wheels and suspension, I was also doing some maintenance work. I wanted a coolant flush. I was going to do it the Chris Fix way, but my parents in good faith told me, it's like, hey, you know, the amount of time you're gonna spend doing that, you know, isn't it easier and better, you know, to just take it to a shop and get it done, you know, get it over and done with, like, easy, fast, you know? I'm like, yeah, I mean, my parents are always looking out for what's best for me, so, you know, I thought, hey, you know, might not be a bad idea. Besides, they got all the professional equipment for a thorough coolant flush. So I said, you know what, thanks, mom and dad, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. You know, it's probably the best idea, you know, it's the better option to go for. And thus begins the biggest regret in my entire life. I made an appointment at the Merced Midas. Took it in the morning. When I got there, you know, I went inside, told them, hey, I'm here, and they came out and they're like, okay, let's just do a walk around of the car. We did the walk around. They checked my tires, you know, tire tread, the condition of the vehicle overall. I was there with them. He acknowledged the fact that, you know, the tires were brand new. They're like, these are new, huh? I'm like, yep, just picked them up last week. They're like, oh, you could definitely tell. I'm like, yep. They're like, all right. He finished his write up, you know, anything during the walk around. And it's like, okay, so I waited. They gave me an estimated time of about 45 minutes to an hour, 1 hour 30 tops. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So they told me, yeah, just wait. They pulled the car in and, you know, they began. Before the 45-hour deadline, they were like, hey, I'm like, what's up? It's like, has your car given you any problems starting up? I'm like, no, why? And it's like, oh, it's giving the mechanic problems to start it up. Keep in mind that my car is already inside their shop. I left it in the parking lot and they obviously had to turn it on and put it inside. So how it started giving them problems, I don't know. You tell me. That's hella sus. So they're like, yeah, it's giving him trouble. I'm like, well, it's never giving me any problems starting up. They're like, oh, okay, we're just making sure. I'm like, okay, cool. So then they started taking a long time. And I was already not too happy because I was starting to get hungry. I was really starting to get hungry. So yeah, I was starting to get a little upset. And I started paying closer attention to what they were doing inside the shop. And while I'm there, I step outside, you know, to be in front of the shop doors where, like, the cars go in and everything. It's a small shop. If you guys live in Merced, you guys know how small it is. And while they're there, I hear them starting it up, and then, like, a huge cloud of black smoke, I'm not even kidding, just like, boom, just came out of my exhaust. And it's like super carbon odor, just like right there. And I'm like, well, what the heck are these guys doing? I just told them to do a coolant flush. Anyways, it was about to get worse because it stalled out and died. And then, like, a few minutes later, they tried again, and this time it wasn't black smoke. This time it was a bunch of fuel. Like, as soon as they turned it on, it's like boom, smoke out of the exhaust. And then this time it wasn't black, but you could smell all that fuel. And I'm just like, what the heck are these guys doing to my car? So at that point, I'm already panicking. And they're like, hey, we need to talk to you about something. I'm like, okay. They're like, come with us. And they're like, yeah, so I think we might know why your car's not working. First, they told me it could have something to do with my MAF sensor. They're like, so we discovered that your MAF sensor's, like, destroyed. I'm like, excuse me, come again? And they're like, yeah. He's like, come take a look at it. And I'll show you guys the MAF sensor. But before I show you guys, I'm convinced that they totally messed that up, because seriously, the amount of force that they had to use to destroy that is insane. And not just that, I've had the car for about 2 years. Not once that I've worked on the car or driven the car has it ever given me problems. So they're going to tell me, in other words, that I was just lucky these entire 2 years that there was never any symptoms of a destroyed MAF sensor. I'll go ahead and show you guys that, because that's the first thing that happened to me. So I'll show you guys the MAF sensor. It is completely obliterated. Look how they massacred my boy. So yeah, they were trying to tell me that I was just lucky in the past 2 years that I never had any symptoms or any problems with my MAF sensor. I don't think so, buddy. No, there's no way. So they told me that that could have been the problem, most likely. And that's what was going on. So yeah, it was barely turning on. Like it needed so much energy just to try and stay alive. So then they told me, but there's also this, like, once we decided to remove the spark plugs, the first 2 or 3, and they're like, look at it. And they showed me some spark plugs, and they were like carbon foul, and they're like, yeah, so it could also be that. One of them was carbon fouled. Let me correct myself. One of them was carbon fouled. The other one was just really wet. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And they're like, yeah, that's not supposed to happen. It's like, maybe your injectors are staying like open. I'm like, well, I've never had this problem before, so, you know. They're like, oh, but anyways, I can only get to these front ones, like, because your intake manifold goes over the ones towards the back, so I can't move those unless you give me authorization. In my head, I'm like, boy, am I lucky to have a GE, because if I had a front-facing intake manifold, oh boy, I'd be ruined. Luckily, the GEs, even without the turbo, and even though I'm not too big of a fan of the intake manifolds on GE, did something. It protected me from further harm. Not just me, itself. So, it's poetic. Anyways, yeah, I told them, no, that's fine. They're like, oh, okay, so you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and put these these 2 spark plugs. They're like better condition, so hopefully it'll help you fix the issue meantime. I'm like, all right, that's fine. So what it was supposed to be an hour job turned into like, what, 4 or 5 hours? And I was like, oh, by the end of the day, I was already like super hangry. I was like, oh my God. They're like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and take the car for a test drive. They took it for a test drive to see if it would work. It didn't. They're like, all right, so we already finished the coolant flush. And it still has the same problem that it had earlier. So I don't know what you want to do. I'm like, I'll go ahead and take it. I don't even want to leave it here anymore. And they're like, all right, fine. So as I'm taking it home, I have to go over some train tracks, and my car stalled out and died. And I was like, I'm going to have to make it home, like, however possible. I managed to make it home. And the first thing I did was, I'm going to go inside and eat, because I have no way of thinking right now. Like, my mind's like full of rage and like anger, and like I need food. I'm running on fumes. So I went inside and ate, tried to cool my head down. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go step outside and open up my hood, take a look at my car. I did. The MAF sensor, like I said, was completely obliterated. But yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and order a new one. Look at the part number, order a new one. And yeah, I made sure everything looked fine. Everything did look fine. So I went back inside, and then my mom was like, okay, I need you to take me to go run some errands. I'm like, all right, cool, that's fine. And my car is usually on the right coming out of my house. So it's always on the right. And her car is on the left. So since I only came to look at my car, looked at the engine, I didn't notice anything inside anymore. But as I'm going to go start my mom's car, and I went to go clean off what I thought were smudges, and boy, my heart sank faster than the Titanic. Passed my finger through it and it just sank. And my hand's shaking because just remembering is so painful. And I noticed that they just chipped them. And I was like, boy, these are brand new. Why? Boy, they were chipped. I was so pissed, and I told my mom, Mom! It's like, she's like, what happened? I'm like, these guys destroyed my rims. They're like, no, seriously? It's like, let me see. And I'm like, it's like, come here. And I showed it to her, and I took pictures. I'm like, this is completely unacceptable. So I called them up, and I'm like, yo, I'm home, and I'm taking a good look at my car, and you guys completely destroyed my rims. They're like, I'm pretty sure we didn't. I'm like, no, you guys did. Because the only place I've been to is from Midas to my house, and that's it. And I was barely able to make it home to Midas. They're like, oh, okay, well, right now we're about to close. Do you think you could come in, like, the next day? And, like, I'm like, absolutely, I will show up the next day. So I showed up, and I had the pictures in hand, right? And I'm like, look, this is what you guys did. And they're like, no, we couldn't have done that. There's nothing in the shop that could do that. And I'm like, yeah, there is, because I'm going to show you guys a video of it, of the damage that's on it. You could see that it follows a very straight path, like very straight. But he's like, no, it's likely that you curb rashed it. What? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And it's not going to make any sense at all when I show you guys the video of that rim. You guys are going to be just as perplexed as I am. It looks good. But then it kind of looks like it's dirty over there. And that's what I thought at first. And as I got closer and closer and closer, and passed my finger right through, I realized how astray I was from the truth. Look at that. Starts small there, then it gets increasingly worse till it gets to that point. And let's just use some logic here. Try and follow the path of the damage. It's very, very linear towards here. Yet they had the audacity to tell me, you probably curbed it. I don't think so. There's no way that was a curb rash. I cannot think how it is even remotely possible for a curb rash to do that. And I actually called him out on that. I told him it would be a good theory. The problem is that the path of the damage isn't in a circular motion. Straight drop. He's like, well, it couldn't have been us. There's no way it could have been us, because did you hear a loud bang when you were here? I'm like, no, I didn't. But then again, it's a shop. What do you expect me? It's like, there's always like, there's always some noise going on at a shop. How am I supposed to hear a loud as ting, or like, how am I supposed to hear something like that when there's so much going on at the shop? And they're like, no, we didn't do it. I'm like, all right, fine. So I'm like, I want to speak to your manager. No, I'm not a Karen. I feel like I was justified in this. If it happened to you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys would also put up a fight, because that's completely unacceptable. Us car guys spend so much time and dedication to our cars, to keeping them nice, to making sure that no damage happens to parts that we invest in so much money, just to see someone who obviously had no care for it completely destroyed. So anyways, I said, I'd like to speak to your manager. They're like, okay, fine. He's not here today. He's on vacation, so he's going to be here till next week. And unfortunately for me, this was right before Thanksgiving week. So, I had a long wait. So I went and I showed him. They're like, we can't do anything, sorry. And I'm like, can I see the surveillance cameras? They're like, no, we can't show you that. I'm like, all right. And so I decided to call corporate, and they're like, oh, each of the shops is individually owned. And I'm like, oh, great, so I can't do anything. So what I decided to do was take it to the next level. I decided to call the B.A.R, the Bureau of Automotive Repair. So this is really important because I feel like a lot of people that don't know about the Bureau sometimes just lose all hope. Fortunately, the Bureau was able to help me. I'm just going to go ahead and call it the B.A.R. The B.A.R was able to help me. I contacted them. I let them know everything that happened. I showed them pictures and everything. They're like, all right, we're going to send a representative to your house at this time. And he's going to take a good look at your car and take pictures and notes as well. And he's going to hear what happened again. I'm like, okay. So he came a few days later, and they took a look at my car. They took pictures, notes down. When he took a look at the rim, he's like, what happened here? And I told him, they tried to tell me it was a curb rash. And I told them, there's no way that could be a curb rash. He's like, no, you're absolutely right. This does not look like a curb rash. And I'm like, that's exactly the fighting point I was trying to make. But they didn't want to accept it, and they want to accept no guilt. I also asked them if I could see the surveillance footage. They're like, no, because, that's against our policy. Okay, whatever. So he's like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and talk with them, and I'll hit you up and let you know what happens. So he goes, and they tell him, like, yeah, we can't show you the surveillance video because it deletes after, like, a week. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, that's sketch. First, they said it's against company policy, then because it erases within a week. I'm like, whatever, it's already sketchy as it is, that they don't want to resolve my issue. So, anyways, fortunately, he was able to reach an agreement with them. He told me, like, send me a picture of all the parts you're gonna need, damaged rim and the mouse sensor. Try and get me a number, like the total cost. I'm like, all right, yeah, for sure. And it was gonna be about $250 to $300. And he said, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and give him this number. The shop said the best we can do is $200. And the B.A.R representative told me this is the best they could do. I advise you to take it, because if you take it to court, I mean, the way things are going, it's going to be really hard to fight your case, and it's going to take a longer time. Personally, I'd say take the $200. I consulted with my parents, and they're like, yeah, that's probably the best option. And I decided, well, it was. Fortunately for me, I like saving, so I decided to look for coupons and discounts for the rim I needed, and I managed to. And then I went and hunted for the mouse sensor until I could find a really good one for a good price, and I ended up paying slightly over $220-ish. So basically I only spent $20. So fortunately that was fine. I ended up replacing the mouse sensor, sent the wheel to get dismounted, and then the tire mounted to the new wheel and installed, and then brought it home. And ever since then, it's never given me any issues regarding that. So yeah, that's my experience with Midas at Merced. Do I recommend them? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Only a madman would recommend them. Yeah, no, I do not recommend them. It was the worst experience possible. 0 out of 10, would never do it again. Even if there was no other option, never do it again. And if you guys ever struggle with a shop that's doing something, or that did something to your car that you feel is very, very sus, feel free to contact the Bureau of Automotive Repair. They were a great help to me, and I'm sure that they will be of great help to you. And my tips, when you take your car to a shop, take pictures, take a video, walk around the whole car, the condition, engine bay as well, everything that you could find that won't actually require you to go all the way under the car. But like the engine bay, take a good video, take a bunch of pictures, rims if you have aftermarket rims, take videos of everything, pictures, and then feel free to leave it. never skip that step. Never. Just go ahead and make sure that always becomes a thing if you have to take it to a shop by any chance. Unfortunately, this is one of the shops that, for me, in my opinion, is one of the ones with little to no honor. And it just really damages the rep of all shops, because within bad shops, there's also good shops. You know, there's good, honest people doing good, honest, reliable, quality work. So not all shops are bad, but it's better to be safe than sorry. It's not that you're doubting. It's not that you're skeptical about anyone. It's just you're doing it for your own safety. And that's what matters in the end. Doing things for your own safety, because you're already investing so much time, emotion, and money into these things that we call cars. They're not just machines for most of us. For many, it's just an extension of us. So, yeah, make sure you guys keep that in mind. And anyways, there's the end of that video. And I'm just glad I was able to get a solution out of it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys learned from my experience so that this doesn't happen to you. And in case it does, or in case it did, you can now have some tips to avoid being screwed over. Yeah, I hope you guys were able to get something out of this video. And that's a wrap. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. There's a lot of content on the way. I just received parts for the SC, and I'm super duper excited to show you all what has been going on. Plus, there's a few updates on Build a Car Workshop that I know you're all gonna love. So stay tuned for that. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you all next time here at Build a Car Workshop.